The All Things TechIE podcast is a product of the Extreme Media Network. For advertising and sponsorship opportunities, please visit www.extrememedia.ie. That's XTREME media.ie.
Audio visual from an Irish perspective. This is the All Things TechIE podcast.
Yes, indeed, it is the All Things TechIE podcast. I'm Justin Dawson. Welcome along to episode 44, guys. Churning out these episodes. Hope you are keeping well. Thanks to everyone that voted for me in the AV Nation Readers' Choice Awards for 2020. Don't know what the results are yet. They will be out on the 8th of February, 2 days' time. It was an absolute honour to be pitched against Chris in the finals, Chris Netto in the finals, who does so much for the AV industry. But if you voted for me, thank you. We'll find out what the winner is in the next 2 days or so. So I'm going to put it out of my mind. Going to have a great episode here. We have for episode 44. We are talking to some new, well, not new, but some AV professionals that are in the Irish AV industry. Tomás Mac Eoin, you would know from the Mac Eoin group if you have dealings with AV professionals in Ireland. So there's the Mac Eoin Technologies, then they became Hereworks, and Tomás joined me under the spotlight to tell me how he got involved with the audiovisual industry and how the Hereworks was set up. Episode 44 of the All Things TechIE podcast. Lead me through the story. Where did you first begin in the world of audiovisual, or was it always like some people hear the Mac Eoin group and say that it's engineering? So is it an engineering background for yourself?
Yeah. Well, I could start even further back. So I suppose Mac Eoin Group originated in 1950, actually family companies with my grandfather. So purely as a building contractor and a main contractor all through the years. My father took over in 79, and then I suppose I grew up with Mac Eoin Group. Of course, was never allowed to sit still, whatever. But I studied actually telecommunications engineering in DCU, which is, I suppose, a division of the electronic engineering degree in there. And I always had a grow for all things network and all things wireless. So I fell into mainly RF engineering. So I would have done a lot with internet service providers over the years. I founded one called broadband back actually in college, and we spun it up out of college. Sold out of that in 2006, and at that stage, we were looking at setting up something new, and we decided to set it up within Mac Eoin Group, and that's when, I suppose, at the time it was called Mac Eoin Technology was born. Well, it's spun through a couple of names as Keel Telecommunications, and we were primarily looking at the telecoms end of things. Within about a year, we fell into the audiovisual and automation. So by 2008, we I suppose the audiovisual division, I suppose, as it's now become, was born. And yeah, we started small. It was myself and Michael, and then it grew from there. And I suppose since about 2013, we expanded pretty rapidly. So exactly for the reasons you said there, people confused the brands and said, well, Mac Eoin's, are they the builders? In the noughties as well, around the same time as we set up Hereworks, we set up a mechanical and electrical division. So they all work independently within Mac Eoin Group. And then in November 2019, which seems like yesterday in one way, but it was actually a year and a half ago, we decided to rebrand, and that's where Hereworks was born. And it was basically, I suppose the main reason was that I suppose the technology division of Mac Eoin's had grown so much, that even in our marketing materials, it was very hard to have one LinkedIn site or one Twitter feed or whatever and talk about the two brands. You can talk about technology all day, but it's a very different audience to the kind of tried and trusted 70-year-old brand that is McKeown Group. So
Absolutely.
Hereworks,
It was about time that it needed to
yeah.
its break away and freedom from the McKeown Group.
And we actually, one of the other reasons was we changed the name, because we were at one stage we were just saying, well, let's just call it McKeown Technology and create a new website and new whatever. But we started doing a lot of work outside of Ireland, and people outside of Ireland can't pronounce McKeown, so we get McKeon and McCoy.
Like, yeah, and I imagine even the Mac Eoin and stuff like that from
Yeah.
your name and.
Yeah, well, I'm Tomás Mac Eoin, yes. Yeah, so I'm a welder, obviously, but the company was always McKeown, so yeah, people get awful confused. So Hereworks, yeah, I mean, we love the name. We love the name. I suppose we went through various different guises, you know yourself, and I think I love the brand. I have to say, I'm loving everyone involved in it. It's not my doing.
So you guys are based in Ashbourne, County Meath, am I right? Yeah. So and it's always been from that area. So I want to rewind back. It's like you're talking about the beginnings of broadband and the beginnings of the internet, nearly from the times out where you were studying. Did you even have internet access properly down in Ashbourne?
No, it's funny now, and I'm actually originally, believe it, McKeown was based in Ashbourne, then Swords, in Artane, then Swords, then Ashbourne. But I actually further out, where I'm from, is actually further out in the sticks, in Dublin, but between Ashbourne and Swords. And that's kind of how I got into the wireless broadband game as well. We were looking at solutions. We've seen the opportunity in kind of more rural areas, but I mean, at that stage, Ashbourne, yeah, had no broadband. Even parts of Swords had no broadband. So, like, I mean, it was rural. It wasn't applied to a lot of places at that stage. So, yeah, it was that was fun. I have to say, I really enjoyed that.
Well, I have to say, we're only after I live in Lusk, and we're only after getting the fibre broadband to our houses.
Yeah.
During this pandemic, and pretty much in the summer we had the air vans driving around, or the contractors for air putting in the broadband, the fibre lines. So I think eventually I'll upgrade to fibre, but expensive though. It is the problem is, because it's new in a lot of areas, it is very expensive still to get the broadband and the fibre broadband.
Look, I mean, it's a sparsely populated country in a lot of ways, and you see the national the broadband rollout, and they'll get there. But I mean, it's a tall order. It's a tall order. To be fair.
Well, put on your hat there, your networking hat, and some people say go off and get yourself a 5G phone, and get yourself a good package. Even if you went on the 3 packages where it allows unlimited data, and just tether your phone, and you get probably quicker speeds than you get the 100 meg that are in a lot of these.
Yeah, and look, if you're lucky enough to be in one of those coverage areas, and you can get that speeds, absolute no-brainer. One thing I do think they overlooked in the national rollout plan, and again, this is probably getting political here, and it's not my intention, but they could have been done rapidly there's a lot of small internet service providers around the country that serve local areas. It might be a county, or it might be a couple of big towns, and I think there was an opportunity there to deliver the high-speed networks by using fixed wireless and providing grants to these smaller firms. I know it would have been very hard to manage, and obviously you'd have to have SLAs, etc. But I think there was a missed opportunity there to get it rolled out a lot quicker, if you know what I mean.
If everyone was reading off the same hymn sheet and like you say, the same SLAs, it could have been done a hell of a lot quicker than what it's been done now. Let's rewind back to the McKeown Group and Hereworks.
Yeah.
A family-ran business. Surely a family-ran business brings a lot of tension and arguments. Like,
Yeah. Well, we're third generation now, and
partnerships. Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Luckily, we are very lucky. I mean, in executive roles with myself and my sister Kleena, and I suppose I don't know if I do the short straw, the long straw, to become managing director, but I couldn't do it. I have to say, and she, I can get very worked up about things. The cleaner calm me down and whatever. So I have to say now I couldn't do with that. We do have other family members involved in the background, but we're very lucky. We get on and we're able to kind of separate work and pleasure. We do work on it a lot. Like we work with the Centre for Family Business. We work with AIB on their. They have a kind of a family business peer group, etc. So we take a lot of guidance from international guidance from the likes of those groups to see, like, how do we plan for the next generation? Because while we get on, it could be when we're, our intention would be to pass it on to the next generation in time, and that's apparently when trouble can really brew. So yeah, we're trying to be as forward thinking as possible.
You mentioned your wife never went down the route of joining you in this clan. Would you say any of your sons or daughters have an interest in the audiovisual end of things?
Yeah, I particularly actually my youngest is 3, and she says she's always going to work for Hereworks. So one of them wants to be a guard, and Mossy. Yeah, I think I could see Mossy on the construction side of things. Yeah.
Well, like you probably like me. Like I just have my studio in here, and I have my compressor and limiter at a height which is perfect for 3-year-olds to press every button. So when I'm doing Zoom calls throughout the day for work, I notice like people go, we can't hear you, and I have to look down and go, oh, he's turned it off again. So I may need to just do a bit of a rejigging in my office. But yeah, though I can imagine that your little 3-year-old daughter is the apple of daddy's eye. And
oh, absolutely. So she gets away with murder. Yeah.
The youngest always gets away with murder. I was the youngest, so I can tell you that as well. So with that in mind, let's bring a. Do you do much with the public sector? You mentioned some private sector. Do you do higher education?
Yeah, we do. We do a lot. We do a lot of third level education. So we work with the likes of TCU, Griffith College, and then yeah, we get involved with a couple of different the agencies as well, like TechIE. As a group, we actually would try and kind of balance, have a good, healthy balance of public and private. There's a perception out there that the private can be very profitable, and the public not so much. But
I've worked on both scales, so
and there's a lot less risk with the public stuff as well. So a nice balance in there is important.
Well, I always think like from going from a very financial firm to a public sector environment, I always feel for the guys that come in and like want to show us all the latest tech, and it's like, that's really nice tech, but the likelihood of me having that type of budget is very slim to none.
Then you see what third level institutions are doing at the moment, and they're so forward thinking. There's a lot, and especially now with the pandemic as well, and everything had to shift online. I mean, it's a long time. I mean, when we started out first, doing AV back in 2008, it was replacing bulbs, it was replacing damaged VGA cables. That's all the colleges were doing. Yes. And now, you see full rollouts of laser projectors, interactive screens, all fully managed on their Fusion servers, etc. So really, I think they've come a lot closer to the corporate sector, and maybe exceeded them in some cases.
Well, certainly the wrecking ball has come in to all of the higher ed and the third level educations here in Ireland, especially when everyone has to be taught from home. Do you do much with primary or secondary schools then, or is it just really?
Not really. No. Not really now over the years. No. To be honest.
No, but I just have experienced that more and more. It's gone to Zoom. People, we have a lot of clinical skills labs, and even going across other universities with clinical skills labs where they need to have the way to stream if we're going to go down this hybrid approach in third level education, which I think anyone is wearing a blindfold if they don't realize that you have to offer this hybrid approach in case there's another pandemic. So I guess video over IP is asked for a lot now.
Yeah, and these, and even actually just, before the pandemic, even we were seeing it as well, where, colleges wanted overflow rooms and wanted to be able to broadcast it, maybe not necessarily stream it online, but just actually expand it into another room and then have the flexibility maybe to only have one tutor, so that there was a way of getting two-way communication back from that remote classroom as well. And then you see the, streaming platforms, but also the likes of Zoom, getting used more and more in education. So yeah, it's there's a lot of options out there now.
So are you partnering more on the Zoom end of things, or would you go across with Microsoft Teams and be supporting both?
In education, we're seeing more and more of Zoom, but corporate we're seeing probably more Teams. So we use a lot of the Flex stuff with Crestron, and then you get so many different applications there, hardware applications for Zoom rooms and all that kind of stuff. And then we see a lot of Google.
Yeah, still there.
Google as well, in corporate as well. So yeah, I mean, there's a good people have their favorites, and yeah, I mean, most of them are pretty mature at this stage. So yeah, it's good to see the back of Skype, I have to say.
So, like I don't know if you listened to some of my past episodes. I've just veered away from Teams a lot because it's a progression of Skype for Business, Microsoft Teams. And I remember 2 years ago going around ISE and just every second booth was, oh, look at our new product. It's with Skype for Business. Like, I don't use Skype for Business. Bye. I just like.
Yeah.
At least now, if anyone went to ISE, whenever ISE takes place again, question mark, will it happen in Spain?
Well, it'll not be in 2 weeks' time anyway.
It won't be 2 weeks.
Next week. Would it normally be next week? Yeah.
It's usually normally next week. Yeah, like it's so sad. Like I don't know about you, but I do miss the networking and the camaraderie of going around all the booths and seeing people that you're friends with on social media and forums and stuff like that again.
Oh, like if you didn't turn up at ISE, people would think you were dead,
Yeah. What's going on? But will it actually happen in Spain? I question.
Yes, and in Spain that'll be a different dynamic. I mean, you kind of nearly know Amsterdam like the back of your hand there. You know where everything is. You know the hall. You know the bars, the restaurants. It's going to be a different. I mean, hopefully, do get back to Barcelona now to do that. It'll be interesting.
I to be honest, I really struggle to see how it can happen this summer, especially when the Spanish government was nearly banning English flights into Spain for the whole summer long. Well, that's all the English population gone, or professionals gone from getting over there. I don't know. Maybe can it go ahead? I don't know. Well, what in the next couple of months it's going to be very interesting. What's comes out from there.
I believe they're going home about running it in the summer. So I can't see it, to be honest. But who knows?
Talking about yourselves and Hereworks, have you had to do a lot of adaptation? Like, first of all, before I ask that question, how many employees would you have with Hereworks now?
In Hereworks Direct, I'd say we've 85, I think, across the group. I'd say about 35 in Hereworks, yeah.
And you're doing north and south then of Ireland?
Yeah, we do north south. We're actually doing a job in Paris at the moment. We're doing it in the UK. So we've worked around Europe as well, but primarily in the island of Ireland. We have a job in Belfast at the moment too as well. So,
and have you had to adapt with now? maybe most of your jobs are install, but like you look at some of the other companies in Ireland that do installs, do live events as well. I don't think you really ever went down the live event route.
No, we didn't go down the live events with the higher that end of things. So I suppose it's primarily fixed installations, and then service level agreements then thereafter. So we would have a number of people embedded in different organizations as well, which is great because you build that partnership then, and I suppose we always say you touch back on our roots there, and our core values, I suppose, through the years have always remained the same. And obviously they're centered around client commitment, but integrity is very important to us. We'll always be as transparent and open with our customers, and I think all our decisions are made with that in mind. And one of our other core values is innovation. So in terms of adapting, yeah, we did big time. But we were first of all, we were very lucky because our team adapted so quickly, and we were asking a lot of people because in the first lockdown we didn't know what was happening, like everyone else, but our guys just took to remote working where possible. Unfortunately, some people have to be put on the temporary leave or the POP or whatever it's called now, and then we had some emergency work, so we were putting people, you were putting people kind of in danger as well. We had a job up in Belfast at the time when the numbers were crazy in comparison to us here in Belfast. I suppose it's gone the other way now, but you're asking a lot of people. I just have to say hats off to all the lads because they're an absolutely incredible group, and I think that's what makes Hereworks what we are. And I suppose I do have to say a huge thanks to them. But we, just before, I suppose back, actually probably about 2 years ago now, we started on an R&D project that we called the Hereworks Happy platform. Mm-hmm. And so we talked about Hereworks Happy Buildings. And what that is it's our own software as a service model, our product for human-centric smart buildings. So we started that, I suppose, it was incepted back in probably August of 2019. Mm-hmm. So when the lockdown came, we were able to start a fast track development in that. So we put a lot of our lads at that. We hired a new CTO through that as well for that project. And I think the pandemic helped push that along. So we're aiming for a minimum viable product for July of this year. So I'm really excited now to see how that turns out, because it's I suppose it's a credit to what the lads did over there.
I was looking at Hereworks' site a couple of weeks ago, maybe even longer. When you did, I noticed the change of name. Mm-hmm. You're offering a lot more as a service platform and being able to once you put the system in place, you can do it more remotely than previous.
Yeah, I suppose we don't really call ourselves an audiovisual company. We call ourselves a technology company. So we're all about, and I suppose speaking from the background I came from, which was the networking, IP networking, I came into this game probably from a different angle than a lot of our competitors. Came from traditional audiovisual, analog through to digital, etc. Whereas I came from from the network, used to Converged Networks, used to IP networks. So I suppose I think that actually was a lot of the catalyst for our success in the, I suppose, the early stage of 2012, 2013, 2014 on, because we had that language and we knew how to converge networks. And so we've continued that guys. So we're not just about audiovisual, we're more so about that whole smart building solution, and actually getting all the data to talk to one another. And we talk now about our latest offering to the market now is as a master systems integrator. So that's working actually alongside a main contractor to make sure that all the different specialist contractors in the building, be it the BMS guys from the ventilation side, heat and ventilation side of things, the mechanical contractors, the electrical contractors, the guys doing the AV, the guys doing the people counting the space analytics, that all that data is converged into one platform, can be easily accessed by building management, but also that the building actually adapts to the requirements of the user, and that's why we talk about human-centric, and that's why we.
And just going back on that, this is going to be your own software and platform that's on it. So
Yeah.
I guess in that regard, you're not aiming down the big names like the Crestrons, the Extron touch panels. You're going more with, I guess, an Android approach, is it?
We will integrate with any systems. Because our platform is the brains of the system, so it will have a companion app. And from that app you'll be able to see how the building is performing, but more so you'll be able to interact with the building. So what is it that you need from your building? You need a desk. So it's from the app. That's how you book your desk. But the app will know, first of all, that Justin, works in this team. He likes being about people. He likes the company, whereas Tomás, he prefers a quieter spot. He prefers the temperature a degree less, so I'll sit him over here. So that the building is constantly learning. So you're getting all this data that you have, that we already have as technology integrators on a building, but they're just not joined. The dots aren't joined. So now you start to respond to the actual user. We've also developed a score, and this is kind of the heart of the Hereworks Happiness platform, is the Hereworks Happiness Score. So we take all this data and we come up with 1% for the building, and that is how happy the building is, or how it's a representation of the wellness of the occupants of that building. And what we can start to see is, we've high level, the high level categories there are things like the external environments. Was it raining? Is it wet? Is it windy? The internal environment, what's the temperature? What's the CO2 levels? What's the particulate matter? You've things then like, is there any IT downtime? What's the energy usage? All this. That all plays into the score. But if we can then start looking at trends, we can see, well, how come today was happier than yesterday? And what's going to happen tomorrow? And that's where it really starts to get interesting. Can we predict tomorrow's score with a bit of machine learning? And we can. And we know that happiness is affected by traffic, by commute times, by the weather, by being too cold or too hot in one corner of the building. But the system again constantly learns, and no two buildings are the same. So a building in Dubai might be concerned with the air conditioning. A building in Dublin might be more concerned about the bus timetable or whatever. So the system constantly learns from the people and from the people in it. So that's really, yeah.
When you talk about smart buildings like that, you could put this platform in anywhere in the world if you have the staff to put it in. Yeah,
well, I mean, as I say, we've rapid deployment sensors as well in development, so that we can actually just pop sensors around the building. Some of it is a bit, you have to interact with BMS systems, etc. So depending on the level of integration you want, it can be done pretty quickly. So yeah, that's the idea, to create a software as a service platform rather than being, stuck to hardware and physical installations, etc.
Yeah, I can see where once people get back into buildings, how this could be actually quite big for you guys. I say it's at the moment it's a sitting duck and wait to see. Like, we all know that there's going to be a bigger push for working from home.
Yeah.
And do you think this is going to impact what you're doing?
Well, funny. I mean, obviously we'd started this pre-COVID, but then when we started it, COVID ticked a lot of the boxes because it was, hot desking, locking out hot desks. If Justin books that desk, so I can't book one within 2 meters of it. But maybe next week it's a meter. Rules change. So ticked all those boxes. Our space analytics is part of it, so we know how many people are in the building, we know where they are. So those ticked boxes. But then we started to think exactly that. How do we connect the home worker? We don't want an us and them, that we have this happiness score for people who are are in the building, we know how happy they are. But how do we connect to possibly half the workforce being at home? So that's coming in the next iteration as well. But it's all about engaging the end user. Yeah.
Well, I personally, and I've been saying it since the very beginning of this pandemic, I see more and more buildings handing back property across Dublin, and more of these setups where you don't have to be one company. It's a virtual virtual's the wrong word, but one of these hot desk scenarios where, so one of these companies might approach a bank, a financial firm, a university, and say, hey, we have you have employees living in Lusk. Well, we have a place in Balbriggan that can hold 40 or 50 people. Just rent a space, rent a desk, have your own privacy, and off you go if you need the speed and you need.
There's definitely, and certainly in the regions, I think there's a huge opportunity for remote working hubs. And not in the sense that we've kind of seen already, where you kind of have these community-based, hot desks, and it's in a hall that's been converted, and there's a couple of tables and whatever. People are going to want the high-quality city centre-like experience, but in the regions. And if if you take the Facebooks, the Googles, the PwCs, etc., they're going to want their own space, so they're not going to want open desks. But they want it flexible. So, you see, it's kind of like the WeWork model, but in the regions, I think hugely. Will everyone give their space back in the city centre? I don't think so. I think the spaces will change. My prediction there is that, those spaces will be used more for meetings, collaboration. There'll be less desks, definitely. But I think, I even see in some of the buildings we're working at the moment now in the high tech industry, they had already kind of started shifting towards that. You have these huddle space, these homely spaces, and these floors dedicated to hospitality, etc. So I think that's more what's going to happen. I don't think there's going to be a glut of stuff coming back in the market. There probably is a bit of oversupply, all right. And we had the panic in the media there about Google, but Google are doing plenty else in Dublin at the moment. And there wasn't. Everyone was expecting this fallout after that.
Yeah, but if you take that whole area, they still own 90% of that area and those buildings. Like you walk from the Grand Canal stop, and all around that area, you might have little buildings setups and little boardroom setups across, like
and then you've the new Golden Mills development. You have, Amazon have a huge work on with Salesforce. So there's LinkedIn. They're all going ahead, and they're all going. So no, I don't. I think that panic has passed. Yes, it's going to be a different environment, but I did see an interesting piece. I think it was in the Irish Times yesterday about, could we use some of those properties and convert them back into residential? I'd say it'd be a tall enough order, but it might happen.
Well, I think the interesting one, I think I read either today or yesterday, was that there was plans for a hotel in Capel Street, and they said there was too many hotels. So in Dublin, so they refused that. So yeah, interesting times of what Dublin City is going to look like in the next.
No, and look, cities, cities always change. I think that there will be a lot of positive outcomes from COVID. A lot of industries will suffer. You mentioned the event industry there earlier, and AB Hire, and we've seen a couple of companies fall there, friends of ours, etc. And it's heartbreaking to see that.
Well, we don't even need to name the companies, but like some of the companies have really adapted to survive. Some have just gone, right, what do we need that everyone, our customers, are looking for? And it's virtual environments, and them setting up rooms where
that's true, TV studios, and
and renting out spaces that you would think are currently vacant because no one's going to them. So adapt or survive
Yeah.
attitude, and wait, whether there's a long-term plan for that, I don't know. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Um, have you found that the installs and what your customers have been asking you for has changed in the past year or so because of what's going on?
There's been a lot of rethink, you know, and a lot, I suppose, a lot of contracts have been paused a little bit to rethink the. I see the term reimagine being used a bit. But that said, there has not been any major change to the big projects we're working on. I'm not mentioning them by name, but small changes, but not major. I think everyone is still expecting that we will get back, we will get back to work in the next 12 months at least. Um, so I suppose yes, with the universities, etc., we got a lot. I mean, we got a lot of work at the end of the summer last year. In fairness to Les, he pulled the cat out of the bag with all the lads to deliver that, because it all came in the last month and had to be done for the first semester. So we've seen a lot of that. We've seen a lot of sales of peripherals at one stage there, you know, like
Oh, look,
headsets and
if
monitors.
we all knew that this was coming down,
Oh
I would
yeah,
actually bought out a couple of containers and filled them with headphones and
oh,
keyboards,
yeah.
mics, and everything. You couldn't get them.
Well, funny, we got a request in for, I think, something like 2,000 um, monitor stands, because when the monitors had come into their building, they put them on you know, desk arms and threw away the. So rather, they didn't want to buy new monitors, but they were buying the stands so they could use the monitors from the building
Right.
site. You know, you multiply that out, that's a fair out cost.
It's a fair chunk of that. Yeah.
So there was some interesting things. We're seeing a lot of stuff around space analytics now. You know, measuring how many people are in the building. We did start looking. I remember at the start of it, you know, the temperature reading, etc. I shied away from it pretty quick because I didn't think it was a very exact science. I think it had the potential to, you know, just breach people's privacy, and you know, I didn't like it. But you do see it a lot. But we see enough. We have done bits with space analytics now, counting people in buildings, that and actually getting to know where they are. And I think that will always be required going forward now, because people want to know. You know, is the place safe for me to go in? Is there too many people? And then for emergency reasons, etc., it's great to know where people are in the building in the event of an emergency. So, those kind of things are the big change. But I think the move, I suppose, what was great for our industry was it was instant digital transformation. I mean, people who never used Teams were suddenly, you know, had no options. So,
as I said to a couple of AV professionals now, all of a sudden I was the smartest guy in the room. You know, because who knows how to do Zoom? Yes, I've been using it since its infancy. You know, okay, Justin, you can show the rest of them how to do it. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And I mean that has to be positive for industry. But I think more and more the buildings are getting smarter, and with that, they require better kind of management systems. And you know, this you know, just tying all that information together, whether it's with the Hereworks Happy platform, or whether it's with you know, some of the bigger companies have their own platform that they need integrated into. And there's a lot of speciality work on that. You know, there's a lot of programming, a lot of software engineering involved in that. So yeah, that's probably the biggest change.
I guess with Hereworks and the Mac Eoin Group, it's so fundamentally sound over the years, because you haven't really needed to branch out and get subcontractors. You have every piece of the pie there. You have the installation, you have the electrical engineers.
We're very lucky, you know, particularly on the electric, to be, you know, when you know, if you're stretched, that you have those extra resources, particularly as well now as we start looking at smart buildings, to have the expertise of the mechanical and the electrical guys there, the engineers and the managers there, to just guide us on what the best practices is. It's very lucky. The interesting thing is we've very little overlap. We do have some customers that overlap, but the two brands actually customers are very different, which is interesting. Probably the exception of DCU, the big customer of both the construction and Hereworks. But aside from that, very, very different set of customers. So it is brilliant to, you know, to be sitting in a meeting with Hereworks and you know, to be talking about integration with BMS system or a solar voltaic system, and be able to just pick up the phone and say, listen, you come across this problem before, yeah, here's the guy to talk to. So, you know, that's a great advantage. Yeah.
Well, I've seen it as well, especially in the higher ed and the third level end of things. When things go off to tender, you could have 3 different companies coming into tender, and then because it usually goes by price, then all of a sudden, because it's a different company that installed it in day one, overlapping with another upgrade to the system, and then all of a sudden you have different pieces of equipment, different, you don't have a standard fully across the campus. I've seen that a lot.
Yeah, look, you know, public procurement is, you know, as I say, we do a lot with it, but in many ways their hands are tied there. But yeah, you do. Sometimes you just have to walk away. Like, I mean, we'll not fight with the stupid money. You know, it's just not worth it. It takes, you never do a job right at that. Yeah. So yeah, we'll be competitive. But you know, sometimes you just gotta walk away.
So have you ever thought, I know you say about your networking background, have you ever thought of doing more with the VIXA, doing your CTS qualifications or anything like that, or has any of your team?
Do more with CTS?
Yes, CTS.
I think most of our lads are CTS. I actually meant to sit the exam during the year and never got around to it. So
because exam centres are closed at the moment. So
yeah, I was over in Infocom last year and I just missed the boat to actually go in and sit it. So I'd love to sit it just to satisfy myself at this stage. But no, most of the lads have varying degrees of the AVIXA qualifications, obviously. But I think I'm more of a CCNA man myself.
Of course, yeah.
Back
networking and
back in the past, yeah. But I have to say we do a lot of leaning on the VIXA standards, etc. I have to say it's great organization to have behind us, and actually to be very engaged through the pandemic as well. And I have to say the community as a whole, we're members of USAV as well, which is kind of a global alliance of audiovisual companies, and it's great to see that international camaraderie and see what's going on in other countries. So yeah, no, I have to say.
So do you go to Infocom? Do you go to Infocom all the time?
I was only at Infocom once.
Okay.
I was there.
Vegas or Florida?
Florida.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I would have gone last year, but it didn't happen.
I keep on hearing that, like, it's interesting when I do these questions with some of the American AV professionals, like some like Vegas, some like Florida. So I always usually throw out that question of Vegas or Florida, and Vegas has the parties apparently. Florida,
yeah, I know. That's all I'm told. Funny. I went. We had a number of meetings to attend. Was the reason I went over, and I remember going, geez, no, I wish it was in Vegas. Yeah, I've never been to Vegas actually, so there you
go. Me neither. And I think that once everyone's vaccinated and back in order, I think I'll just set up a GoFundMe page or something like that, and just get over to Vegas and just experience Infocom in that.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw finish off the interview with some quick fire questions, and usually I ask think of one moment as in your career background, I can't just say audiovisual, but career background, where shit has hit the fan, and how did you deal with it? It sounds like an interview question, I know.
Mm,
But like,
shit has hit the fan.
we all had those moments where the sweat beads are running down our
Not at all, Justin. I have to say, no, we're a very organized organization. All through my life, the shit has never hit the fan. No, money a joke. Um, God,
and I guess great fun when shit hits the fan and you're working with siblings.
yeah. I'm trying to think of an example now. You really put me on the spot here now. You should have given me a heads up about this. I could have thought.
I love throwing this question at people.
Yeah, and I'll try and keep it AV related. Um, no, I'm really struggling here. Go on, give me the next question. I'll try and think of an answer for you there.
Well, where does the future lie with Hereworks? Where would you like to see the brand go?
I suppose international is huge from us, and we have the backing of Enterprise Ireland now as well. So we have the R&D grant for them to help us with the Hereworks happiness platform. So I would like to see that built out, and I see more and more, I suppose, the smart, fully integrated building being our future. In a way, what we've seen in the last couple of years is that the audiovisual market has got a lot more competitive. You have a lot more standards coming in with the likes of team rooms and Zoom rooms and all that kind of stuff. And it's easier to it's more accessible for people to install that type of equipment. So I suppose we're looking at what's next, what's cutting edge. So we're looking at being the master systems integrator, and also looking at building out our happiness platform. So I think that's and international. So yeah, that would be, if we were to look ahead, I'd say on our 5-year horizon. Yeah, that's I would like to be an established international brand. Yeah.
Sounds great, but what advice do you give for people that's trying to enter into the industry?
Don't do it. No, I have to say, look, I love it. I'm a geek at heart, and of course I love shiny things. So that's and new things. So the appeal of Crestron and beautiful installations is great. But no, I think one thing our industry is missing is a proper education route into it, like an apprenticeship. We would take a lot of electrical apprentices in, and we'd give them an electrical apprentice, but train them in the audiovisual and technology side of things. Obviously, get them through their CTS and their AVIXA courses and the manufacturing factors courses. But we have toyed with kind of working with a university or an institute of technology to develop an entry into the industry, because there is we've a good pipeline of stuff coming up, and there's a limit. You nearly know everyone in the industry, as you know all your competitors, who's works, who's moved here, who's moved there.
Very small. It's a very small, tight community.
It's only going to get more technical when you see the likes of the smart buildings, etc. It's getting more technical. So our go-to now is more the kind of software engineering courses to recruit from them. It'd be nice to have a dedicated smart building course or audiovisual course that you had a supply of people coming out of it. So yeah, my advice to people would be, come and talk to us, because there's plenty opportunities, and I love it. So yeah, I'd encourage anyone.
Well, I think you've hit a big taboo type of question. Is AVIT, or is it?
It is now. It's well, I mean, look, is AVIT? It's all about converged networks. So yes, they have to be part and parcel. People have in their heads, IT is desktop computers and whatever. But in reality, it's all one converged network. Security is paramount. So yes, it's a converged network. I wouldn't call it IT. I wouldn't call it AV, I call it AVIT.
I think you've hit the nail on the head that it is a converged network. I keep on going back that even from the old days of when I worked with PwC, I don't understand 100% networking. The networking team doesn't understand 100% the sound and visuals of AV and twisting knobs, just like I want to understand all the packets that's going through. Well, slowly but surely with different exams and whatever I do. But it's that type of separation where we converge, we talk to each other. I guess with Hereworks, very closely you talk to each other, and you've seen it through your career that you've overlapped both ends of the scale with regards to.
Yeah, and then look, as I say, I think that was our strength early on. I think everyone else has caught up with it at this stage, to be honest. But I mean, there's very different disciplines in there for sure. I mean, you mentioned sound. I mean, sound engineering is still, is miles away from a Crestron programmer. Somebody programming a DSP is a lot different from someone configuring an Ethernet switch. So there's different disciplines within it. But gone are the days when IT won't speak to AV, and there used to be a lot of that IT guys, particularly in large organizations, hated to see the AV guys come and go, why are they going to put in our network? It's going to be multicast and it's going to pull down all our switches and whatever. So I'm still trying to think of a shit hit the fan moment. I mean, there's always been tight deadlines. I mean, I think that's probably, and particularly at the moment, because the construction programs have got tighter and tighter and tighter, and AV by its nature is the last man standing. You have to have a clean site. You have to have, and generally our friends that are putting the networking switches are just are at the end as well. So we can't configure our device until the network is live, and so I think that's probably the common occurrence. But
again,
in fairness, we've never missed the deadline, so I can't say the shit hit the fan.
It must be great to have 90% of that team involved between Hereworks and the Mac Eoin group, where you're not relying on people outside of your company per se. Not as much, where you can do out a project plan and go, right, okay, has the wall been built? Yes, tick. Has the cable been ran? Tick.
Yeah, well, as I say, I mean, generally Hereworks aren't doing work from the Mac Eoin group for the construction arm of things. We're generally working with under a main contractor, be it Walls or Structure Tone or Mac or whoever that be, or direct for the client itself. So we're generally working with the third party anyway. I suppose the advantage really comes is that project management is in our DNA, that we understand the pressures, we understand we talk the same language as the main contractor, as the electrical contractor, but in reality and that's the interesting thing, we're rarely working with the Mac Eoin side of things. So what I think the advantage really is that we have the expertise in the background that we can call on, and second of all, we speak the same language. And we understand that fit out projects are an evolving thing. You may hit a problem on floor 7, which means you have to jump down to floor 5, and you make the most of your time there. So that's really where the advantage comes from.
Yeah, like and I know, especially when it comes to AV repairs or any type of installations or like that. When you think it's going to be an easy 30-minute job, it always ends up to be the day-long job. Yeah. Thomas, if people want to get in contact with you, if people want to network with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, look, easiest is Hereworks.ie or LinkedIn Hereworks, and you'll find you can email me direct. There's a link there for my emails. There's no problem. Just go to the About Us there, and you'll find us there. So easy enough to find us.
Well, I have to say you're one of probably the first guys who couldn't think of a moment where shit hit the fan. But no, you know,
I know there is one somewhere, but yeah.
my thanks to Tomás for joining us on episode 44 of the All Things TechIE podcast. I've been Justin Dawson. Thank you so much for listening in. You can subscribe to our podcast. You find us on all the podcast stores. We're also on YouTube. Please hit subscribe there and you won't miss a podcast. And you can also comment at allthingstech.ie. You can find us on our official website, www.allthingstech.ie. Like, comment, share, tell your friends, because we have some great competitions coming up in a couple of episodes' time. You don't want to miss that. And we are going to keep going with the Irish AV professionals. We have a couple of other Irish AV professionals to talk to in the next couple of shows. So don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. You'll see this little box that's going to pop up on the screen now of how you can subscribe on YouTube as well. Until next time, guys, stay safe and thanks for listening.